Welcome, Josh.
Thank you.
Is it Josh or Joshua?
It's Joshua if my mum is angry at me.
Okay, I'm not
Josh,
wrong.
undo the dishwasher. Unpack the dishwasher. There we go.
I'm not angry at you. I'm actually really grateful because we arranged this, 3 times?
This is the third, I think.
Yeah, thank you.
Of course.
Yeah,
Life
and
gets
we're in
in the way.
Dubai.
We are.
Yeah.
Not like you can tell from the backdrop here, but
No,
yeah.
we're not. But you're originally from Australia. So how did you get from Australia to Dubai and what brought you here?
So originally I was sitting on my couch and I'm looking at my phone and I get this message on Facebook that says, "Hey Josh, would you be interested to go to Dubai?" Naturally, I think it's a scam, obviously. So I put in a very, very, very half-assed effort to be able to write back. They wanted, because I was a musician and singer, okay? So premise there. They wanted me to come and perform in a 5-star hotel on the Palm Jumeirah, all expenses paid, flights, accommodation, visa, live in the hotel, on the lagoons with the gym and the pool, the beach access, and just perform 6 days a week. I was like, yes, for sure, right? So I didn't really take it very seriously. And I put together a press kit, so your biography and photo and video. The video was a very, very blurry video of me singing in a pub. The second was me I didn't even know how to dress myself at that point. I was like 21 years old. So I had a shirt that was too big and a tie that wasn't done up properly and a biography that I wrote in about 3 minutes. This is before ChatGPT, just by the way. And so I sent that away and then it just went dark. I didn't hear anything for about 3 or 4 months. And I get this email that says, "Okay, they like you. You leave in 2 weeks. Here's your tickets." I'm just thinking, oh, what? Wow. So I had to defer my university degree 1 semester from finishing, which is music. I broke up with the girlfriend, got rid of the house, and just got to the airport. And I'm thinking, if this is a scam, I swear to God.
Wow.
And so I get to the check-in desk and my ticket works. I'm like, oh, okay, fantastic. I arrive in Abu Dhabi and I hop into a bus and then it drives me to Dubai where there's a Lexus waiting. And I'm thinking, whoa, that's crazy. That's a really expensive car. I didn't know that's an Uber. And they drive me to the Anantara Hotel in the Palm Jumeirah, which is this beautiful, stunning, luxurious hotel. I'd never been in a 5-star hotel, let alone a Dubai luxury 5-star hotel in the Palm Jumeirah, right? I get into the reception. They're like, "Mr. McCartney, we've been waiting for you." Don't know if you've ever had that moment of real disbelief where you're just thinking, this is not real. Yeah. This has got to be a dream. They take me to my room and I just start laughing because it's 3 a.m. I see the lagoons are just lit up and beautiful colors like purple and blues. And the room is just, you open the cupboard and the light turns on. I'm just, this is crazy. So I call every family member individually. Like, look at this. When you open the cupboard, oh my God, it turns on. Like I was just a kid in a candy store. It was crazy. And so I did an 8-month stint of performing 6 nights a week at that hotel. And all of the dream that they sold me was real. It was so beautiful. From that point, I just fell in love with Dubai. I figured I need to find a way to stay here. And I went from contract singing in the hotel to then starting my own freelance company. So I started freelancing around Dubai in many different hotels and venues and weddings and corporate events, started doing other things like employing people to go into the hotels and perform. And I just eventually found that wasn't what I wanted to do anymore. And we'll get into that sort of stuff about what happened next. But it was a very unlikely scenario that just evolved by itself that I didn't even look for. And Dubai has a way of just...
a lot of people say that.
Really new.
Yeah, I've heard similar stories from other people as well. It's fascinating. So how many years ago was that?
10.5 years ago.
9?
10.5 years ago. Yeah.
Wow. So a decade in Dubai.
Decade in Dubai. That should be the podcast name, actually.
It shouldn't it? That'd be good, wouldn't it? Yeah, that should be one.
It's a different city, though. After 10 years, it changes a lot.
And what would you say has changed most? If you talk culture, because you've been obviously in the venues at the front of seeing people a lot.
It feels like there's a lot more people now in general. And that means different walks of life in every area. Yeah. When I first arrived, there wasn't much of a health industry or spirituality industry at all in Dubai. So people weren't that fit at that point in time. Essentially, the gyms were just building gyms and stuff like that. There were obviously bigger warehouses and stuff like that. But that came a little bit later. A lot of the culture, it was a lot of the late night shishas. You're eating in these bars until 3 or 4 in the morning. Then you go home. It was a lot more of that sort of thing. That was a lot more standard. Over the years, it has changed because there's just such a huge amount of people coming in now. So you've got a whole different level structure of Dubai now. It used to just be ultra wealthy, sort of middle, lower. Now you've got everything in between.
Yeah. Wow. And so you're now known for coaching people in public speaking.
That's correct.
So how did that come about from being an artist? Were you a singer and a songwriter?
I didn't enjoy writing songs, so I
Yeah.
just sang other people's ones. I found that to be the
Nice.
easiest way to do it.
Yeah. But that's, I mean, it's not wildly different, but it's definitely a different industry with a different skill set. How did that all come about?
Yeah. Part of what I left out in the story of the introduction to coming here was that I grew up really, really overweight and shy. I was bullied. I had terrible teeth. I had braces for 6 years. So most of my life, I felt like an outcast. And what I deeply wanted was to actually just connect with people. Originally, I thought that music was going to be that vehicle to do so. But what I found was I'd perform, I'd put on this persona on stage. I'd be this cool guy, so cool, rock on. And I'd hop off stage, and then I just realized I still couldn't speak to people. So I started, after every set that I'd play, I'd say, okay, Josh, you're going to meet one person today. Just one. So what I'd do is I'd walk up to a table and I'd want to say hello. So my hands would start sweating, my heart would start pumping, I'm getting shallow breath, and I'd start freaking out, and I'd go to shake their hands and like, no, next time, Josh, next time. You got this next time, Josh. And when I was a teenager, that was fine. But being a fully grown man, still finding it difficult to even meet people and connect with people, I found that something had to change. And my desire to really want to connect with people and share what I know, I decided to sign up to communication classes and public speaking, body language, NLP, CBT, and started doing memory training and something interesting to have to speak about. And after learning everything, I just realized, wow, there are little skills that you can do that actually connect people to you. Like smiling when you speak is a small one. Most people don't smile when they speak. Most people don't use tonality when they talk. And so after I just learned all these little skills, I thought, wow, I can actually help other people to improve their quality of life and the way that they experience their life. So for me, it became a fulfillment journey rather than an ego-driven journey of music, where I hop on stage and everyone dances and like, oh, you're so good. I'm like, thanks, bro. Sick. Into you see people's lives change. People come to me after my events and they're breaking down in tears, saying that it has had more impact on them than anything that they've ever done, that they've rediscovered a part of themselves they thought they'd lost, and that anything is possible now. So it was a deep desire to connect, which turned into fulfillment.
Amazing. And so NLP and these kind of practices or courses or things that you learned them at quite a young age, it sounds like.
Started the NLP stuff maybe 25, 26.
Nice.
So,
and how did you see that boost? Because there's really mixed opinions, isn't there, on things like NLP, and some people say it's fake. Who are you being? Is it really who you are? Would you say that you connect with any of those thoughts, or has that really become part of transforming your confidence?
It's been a huge part of transforming confidence. Being able to read people and to move people intentionally, it's a beautiful thing. Most of the public speaking stuff we do, it's based on a lot of NLP. If you want to be able to, and I think we're jumping pretty far ahead here, the intention for the public speaking is to inspire action in other people. Okay, so we want to start with that. It's not to manipulate and persuade and take people's money and all this stuff. That is not what it's about. It's about getting people to take a decision and take an action that they wouldn't normally take. You know, when I did my first TEDx talk, I was standing in front of everybody and I realized every single person in that crowd is looking to the speakers to give them a piece of information that can change their life. And if you're not using engagement skills and the ability to actually connect with people when you speak, then you're wasting their time. So using little elements of influence and persuasion, NLP, allows you to connect deeper. And so, yes, it's helped in every way because you can hold people's attention for longer.
And do you get people asking about, it's like coming to you and saying, like, how am I going to still be authentic? Because this word authentic is just absolutely everywhere, isn't it? And so they must come to you like, how am I going to still be me? What would you say if someone came to you and said that?
It's probably the most common fear that people have, apart from the fear of speaking itself. It's that losing themselves or losing that authenticity. And I always kind of come back to the idea about whenever you learn a new skill, is the future version of you that already is able to do that skill the authentic version, or is it you now? Because the authentic version who you are now is where you are. It won't get you further. So to be able to become someone else, you need to change something about you. And when it comes to speaking, your speaking is just another instrument. When I started playing guitar and I was bad, I didn't get people coming to me and say, oh, so inauthentic, Josh. Gross, you're being so fake right now with that guitar. You're learning how to play the instrument, and just like speaking, but because it's biological and integrated with you, it feels a little bit different when you learn to play that instrument differently. So it's going to feel inauthentic, but if you trust the process, then you're going to become a beautiful speaker. And in the same way, a chef will learn a recipe and they'll get better at the recipe. When they finally get better at the recipe, they add their own little spice. And that little piece of spice becomes their authentic dish. That becomes their confident version. So whenever you start your speaking journey, it's going to feel weird because you're following someone else's recipe.
And so what do you think the obsession with authenticity actually is about?
Most people don't even define what that means. They're tying it generally to something negative. So they've seen a speaker they don't like. They've seen somebody online, an influencer, it's like, hey guys, we're going to this thing today, and it's not who they are, and they don't want to be that person on camera, they don't want to be that person in real life because they've spoken negatively about it, and they've heard other people speak negatively about those speakers. So their idea of authenticity is generally based off, I don't want to be that person specifically, not about who can I become if I learn these skills.
Yeah, that's powerful. That's really powerful. So talk us through a little bit about what you actually practically do for people and how you do that.
It's my favorite thing in the world. I generally run 3-day events normally. I'm not pitching here, just by the way, just what I do. You asked the question, so I'm going to tell you.
A little bit, but that's okay.
Buy my courses.
NLP.
No. So typically what we go through is an entire speech formula, a speech structure, a template that you can use, replicate, copy, and paste for everything you're going to do. So whether it's going to be a presentation, a pitch, a keynote, a TEDx talk, or just even basic conversations, you use pieces of that template within your life. So day one, we normally go through what your message is going to be to become really clear, to be A to B rather than A to H, then to X, then to Z, and then to D, then E, then maybe if you get to it back to B. Right? We get really clear on what your message is and structure the speech in a way that actually connects with people and moves people intentionally along those points. So day one, we get really clear on that. And day two, we start going on a lot more storytelling. Because if you're able to tell a good story, you're able to move people's worlds. There was this quote that I heard, I don't know who it was, but they said, those who rule the world, those who tell stories rule the world, so learn to tell a really good story. And what you're doing is people have these stories about why they can or why they can't achieve something in the world or in their life, and they've got a story around it. So if you can tell a better story, you can change their beliefs. And a lot of the things that are holding people back is the stories. So day two, we go really deeply into telling stories, as well as then standing on the stage, where to stand, why to stand there, how to make people feel stuff, and how to hold their attention, body language, a bit of tonality and stuff like that. By day number 3, we start putting everything together. And we use some really powerful language patterns that connects everybody in the room. So what I mean by everybody in the room is that one-to-one, it's already difficult to hold people's attention, right? Have you ever had those conversations where you just see people's eyes disappear?
Yeah.
Yeah, or you've been listening to someone, you're like, what are they talking about right now? That's amplified 100 times in front of 100 people, obviously, right? So imagine trying to hold everybody's attention. That's what you need to do as a good speaker, is to be able to hold everyone's attention in the entire room. So we go through different language patterns to be able to do that. How to tell general relatable experiences that connect to your points so that it connects to everybody. And when you start putting those things into your speech, people are like, yeah, he gets me or she gets me. They understand me deeply. So therefore they start to trust you. And by the end of the 3 days, you've got about a 60 to 90 minute presentation that you can use for everything. You can shorten that and you have your own signature talk for 15 to 30 to 60 minutes. Just depends on how you want to use it.
So you get people who come to you from, I'm guessing, the corporate world, public speaking world, entrepreneurs. What's your main demographic of people who be at the speaking courses? Maybe we will get better at dating.
Oh, it's a whole thing, yeah, for sure. Yeah, communication, baby, let's go. I've got a bit of corporate because a lot of people get caught up with corporate jargon. Get some freelancers, get some coaches, instructors, people who are engineers, people with digital marketing. People start to realize that communication affects every area of your life. So it's not one set. I don't niche that deeply in what I do, even though I probably should. I don't know. But I like catching a wider net of people. So it's a big mix of people.
Amazing. And so what would you say, like having a digital age now, like where so many things online, How has that, from what you've seen, your experience, or maybe what comes through your front door, impacted our ability to communicate effectively?
I think it's helped our ability to communicate online, but not necessarily in person. And what I mean by that is people get really good at speaking on camera or speaking on podcasts. But then what happens when the podcast turns off? You know, for example, like when we first met in the other room, it wasn't a boring conversation.
No. Oh, no.
Right? But a lot of people, those initial conversations are, what do I talk about? I don't know how to make this interesting. And it's awkward for a lot of people because so many people are used to texting, so stream of consciousness. Not many people are used to getting those thoughts out of their mouth to other people.
Yeah.
So I think it has helped a lot of people in different ways, but it's starting to disconnect us and stop our ability to communicate.
Yeah. And so what would you say is a linchpin of how we can get better in person?
Firstly, like anything, it will always come back to intention, always. I think I mentioned it before. If you start with the intention to make somebody's day better, just 1%, then that will change your communication straight away. There was a study that was done where people were really afraid of communication and they wanted to have deeper conversations. So what they do, they write down some good questions on cards and put them in their pocket. And what they found was that after their conversations, it had been the deepest, most meaningful conversations they'd had in a long time, and they didn't even use the card. So the simple act of trying to get better at communication will naturally improve your ability to communicate.
So like when you were the performer and you would be like, just one person.
Just one
That
person.
one handshake.
One person.
And start there. Yeah.
If you just set your intention that I want to make this person feel better than when I met them, even if they're already happy. But then what happens is a beautiful byproduct of that is that people remember you. You know, if you can make somebody's day better, they remember you. And then they're like, oh, Josh was that guy who was that speaker guy. Oh, I remember him when that opportunity comes up. Or Sarah was that incredible podcast and I've got somebody who would be brilliant on her podcast. But if I came on this podcast, for example, and I just had this really bad day and I offloaded onto you and you met me and my association from you was, oh, this dude's a drag. The communication is going to go down straight away. And you're going to remember me in a negative light. So why not start with the intention to, hey, I want to have a good day with this person. I want you to be 1% better than I found you.
Yeah.
Even if it's just my energy to give back to you. That's it.
And so you've blown up quite a lot online really quickly.
Stop it.
Right? You were saying 800,000.
Yeah, TikTok went up really quick.
So you must have had haters in that, and people
God, yeah.
who were like, yeah, what do they hate you on? Because obviously now you're saying like, I'm going to make your world better. My intention is to make it better. This doesn't always land, does it, with people?
No. And as you kind of go through it and you get to the other side of it, you just realize that people are having a bad day.
Yeah.
It's okay. And they project their insecurities onto you online. And because there's no filter, you know, most people wouldn't say that in person. They've got the protection of a screen and anonymity online, right? So they've never actually said in person. So it doesn't affect me at all. But again, my intention has always been to just share the cool stuff that I know. And I would have some of my posts blow up and some of them would have like 23,000 comments or something crazy, right?
Wow.
1,000 or 2,000 of those would be really negative. I'm thinking there's nothing to really even be negative about on this, but they still will. I just had one of mine recently go relatively viral and it's just about me being on a boat ordering
I saw this, the takeaway.
Yeah. And some people like commented and like were a little bit rude to it and then messaged me. It's like, who the hell do you think you are? Blah, blah, yeah, you rich bastard and stuff. It's like, what? Like I'm just ordering lunch on my mate's boat for like, it's the same price as going to lunch.
Way. I was like amused by it. Then I was like, is he getting paid for this? Like I had a few questions, like, but it didn't offend me.
I know, but there will always be people that get offended. So I don't know, if you are starting to blow up or you're worried about that, just realize that it's a good thing. For number one, you should be aiming for 20 to 30% of the engagement to be negative, just by the way, because that drives the engagement, which makes the post go further, which means it can get seen in front of more people that actually could use your help.
Amazing.
So the negativity, there's always dark and light.
Yeah.
You need it.
But then we also spoke about this before, didn't we, before the camera started rolling, about if your intention is to create this stir and this polarization. And is that something you've ever done intentionally? I
did it once and it worked. I didn't like it. I instantly got friends of mine reaching out being like, what are you doing?
Yeah, what did you do?
I just said, I found a hooks list online of like the most viral hooks. So I just went through it and there's some that were polarizing. I think it started with like, most of you hate Andrew Tate because most of what he says is true. Something like that. It's a hook. Right? It's a polarizing hook. And I go through the video to say I was having a different point of time and that at that point in time, I needed a bunch of alpha men to kind of help brainwash myself into just taking action rather than sitting and feeling sorry for myself.
Yeah.
And I intentionally use that within a 20, 30-minute interval in the gym. And that's about it. But I had people hating me for it, like full messaging me, being like, Josh, you need to get rid of this sort of stuff right now. This is going to affect you forever. I'm like, it's one post. It's going to disappear in a day.
Forget.
No one cares.
Yeah, no.
I just didn't like that version of it anyway. There's a certain ego that you need to present yourself as to polarize. And I don't really enjoy doing it because it's not who I am.
Yeah.
So for me, it's not my version.
So if you had a client who really wanted to, and you were working one-to-one with them, for example, do you work with people one-to-one?
Occasionally, not as much.
But they wanted to go down this route and it doesn't sit well with you. How do you work with people who maybe don't completely sit within your worldview or moral code or your advice?
It's not about me at the end of the day. And learning happens in phases. I can only tell you my advice after going through it. And if it's strategic and intentional, that doesn't harm anybody, there's no bad about it. And maybe it makes more sense for their brand and their personality and their aura. Some people should be filming in the daylight because they've got a very bright lights energy to them, right? Some people need that more darker frame with the camera angled downward, so looking up at them, so they're more authority, badass sort of thing, right? So people have different themes to them, and the way that they present the information will get across to their target demographic better if they follow that theme. So in the end of the day, it's not about me, it's about what's best for them, and then being able to get their message to ripple out to affect more people positively. So you've got to get out of your own way.
Yeah, that's great. And so cancel culture, right? How does that impact public speakers?
So far, it hasn't affected me, thankfully. Cross the fingers or whatever. Tap on wood.
I think you're too likable online to get cancelled.
Oh, thank you. Stop it. Stop it. Okay, more.
Ego. I do it for filming, but the ego,
still need it.
I still like it.
I haven't seen it affect too many people, to be honest. I've seen it affect comedians and also actors and stuff like that. I think people get offended way too much by the littlest things. I think it shouldn't affect your day. I think if you're allowing other people's opinions to affect your day, you've got a pretty weak mind. Yeah. And you've got nothing else to do. Yeah. Honestly, in my opinion. Because if I see something I don't like online, I just let it go. Yeah. So it doesn't have to affect the rest of my day. Or I could sit there and think about it, stew on it, connect with people and be like, yo, do you see this thing that Sarah posted? And then find a contact to be like in Twitter or something, be like, yo, you need to get this person off of the platform. Like, it takes so much energy and effort that it's like, go find something else to do. Find something better.
Find something productive to take
something
your time
productive,
to. Yeah. Do you think it changes the industry at large, though? Are people becoming, from your experience in public speaking, more guarded, more aware of this? Are they maybe mincing their message or like downplaying it a bit?
I haven't seen too much of it personally. Doesn't mean it's not happening. Once I started to learn the more sales side of speaking, I started to use potentials and universals anyway, so that it doesn't directly drill in a point. And what I mean by that is, you'll here for this reason, or maybe this is happening in your life. And ultimately, some of us are something, maybe you've felt something like this before, using potentials rather than directly, this is exactly how it is. So it's less of a personalized opinion directed towards something as it is a general statement. Yeah. And if you're able to start communicating that way, then I don't think it matters too much anyway. And like anything, leadership, communication, the life that you're living comes down to you. And that starts with the communication anyway. So as you get better at that, I don't think it should affect you, really. But if you're out to really polarize and create chaos online, it's probably going to come for you at some point.
Depends on your intention. So Dubai, living here, this is a world of extremes in some ways.
No.
It's anything is possible. And it's definitely got an image, hasn't it, online? Do you think that impacts the way that people communicate and how?
Yeah, it does. And there's a lot of good memes that come up with this, people renting a Lambo or something and using somebody else's watch and like flexing like, hey man, I just got this crypto course, you got to buy it. Okay, next person, they go into the car and do the same thing, because Dubai is a land of, there's opportunity here, there's innovation, there's implementation. It's a world that you can create anything you want. And being around that, because everything is new, everything is bigger, everything's shiny, it's very easy to get plugged into the idea you need to be better. And if you're not presenting this idea, and I've done this before, that you're bigger than your reality, then you're nothing. And it can get very, very taxing for a lot of people, because it means that some people just stop being authentic, or they're just guarded a lot of the time. And a lot of the time, one of the first questions people ask you is, where are you from? Where do you live? What do you do? Those 3 questions. They're judging your background, maybe your ethnicity or nationality or something, to target you in some sort of demographic. Then your location of where you live, how much can you afford? And then what do you do? It's like trying to judge your pay grade. And so a lot of people, they'll try to communicate around the fact of that. It's like, yeah, I live in this really cool area, blah, blah, blah. And it might be a studio, and that's fine, But people are afraid to speak their actual life in fear of judgment from the rest of the world, of Dubai.
And do you think there's more pressure for men?
I feel there is, because I live in that experience. I don't live as a female. However, I have noticed that from my side as well, it's a lot more geared towards men have to be really taking action here. Otherwise, it's cutthroat. I
mean, I see that here. Yeah. I mean, I'm a woman. My experience is as a woman, but I definitely don't feel those same pressures to, like, if someone asks me where I'm from, I just say where I'm from. It's not a very good place, but I'm very proud of it. Like, I have no sense of, or a lot less sense of judgment or that need to be a provider or prove my worth in that way. And I do see it here for men. And I think women put more pressure on men here as well to be of a certain way.
I think it's like, and also I don't know where it started from, what it came from, but in terms of it increases the standard of each individual, I think, and you're naturally just trying to be better. But then there is a lot of pressure. So I think it comes down to, let's say that you move to Dubai as a girl. First 1 or 2 months, you go on some dates, and you meet a really rich dude that picks you up in a Rolls Royce.
Yeah.
There's not much up from there, And then as a typical guy that maybe makes an average wage or something, it's like you can't afford to keep up with that lifestyle. So you're always feeling inadequate. And so then you're trying to present yourself in a way that you might not be. So for guys, there's that image that if you don't have that sort of car or live in the same sort of place, or make that much money, then you're nothing. And a lot of girls, especially things like ladies' days, exist everywhere. It's not as expensive.
100% it's not.
As a woman that I've seen, doesn't mean that it's true. It's just my experience.
Full stop. Yeah. I work in the hospitality industry. Yeah. We see it. You can come here, and I know a lot of girls who come here knowing that they don't need to come with all the money, because they can just hop from thing to thing.
Yeah, I've had girls ask me for this sort of stuff before as well. Yeah. Like, I've gone on one date with a girl, and then she was asking me to pay her rent.
I've heard this as a cultural thing. Yeah. I've actually heard this as a cultural thing. I couldn't believe it until I actually met somebody who works in my company, and that's what she does to get her rent paid.
It's mental, right?
I mean, but it's weird, because when you're in your country, wherever you lived, because you didn't live in Dubai like a few months ago, you weren't getting your rent paid. Oh, no. So how do you go from accepting you don't need to pay your rent to a few months later going, who's paying my rent, and wanting to find the one that's going to pay you? What happens in that time frame? I'm really curious.
I don't know, but that's the thing. It's like you get surrounded by that affluence so quickly, and opulence of this world is so big and grand, and everyone has money, and you don't pay for my rent. It's like, you're pathetic.
Wow.
So the standard gets set really high really quickly.
But that must be really hard to date, and actually find authentic connection. It must be harder.
I'm still a very firm believer on you get who you are.
Very true.
And yes, if I'm just looking for some quick hookups or something like that, then it's probably going to be a bit more difficult to find an authentic person. I'm not currently looking to date or attempting to, right? And if that just spontaneously happens, great. But that will be a reflection of who I'm currently being. So I'm not really worried about it. So many people are asking like, oh, why are you single? Because I'm happy. I'm not missing anything. Like when I'm missing something, sure. But I think it's still an internal reflection of where you're at. And when you start to find peace in yourself, then that sort of stuff comes along.
And that concept of be the thing that you want to actually have or see is so powerful. We miss that so much. And so much of it is like our want list or our I must have list, or
desires of the ego.
Yeah. The powerful and harder work is maybe to be the thing, right?
The consistent thing. Yeah. I know that for me, it's like if I want to have a good body, for example, then I need to be the person that shows up to get that body.
Mm.
If I want to grow my business, I need to be the person to show up to grow the business. If I want a good relationship, I need to be the person to show up to get that relation. It's not any different.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of men are all cheaters and stuff like that, then it starts with us. Or if I'm thinking, women are all gold diggers, it starts with me.
Mm-hmm. What have you
And
allowed?
what have I allowed?
Well,
what
yeah.
boundaries did I not set?
Yeah.
What flags did I choose to ignore because of my own insecurities and childhood trauma?
Mm-hmm.
What are those things that I didn't do? And again, it's me, I, rather than them.
Yeah. But do you think you can ever own too much? Can there be too much ownership?
When it becomes negative, I assume it probably could be. Can it become too much to take full ownership? No, I don't think so.
Surely there's some situations though, like if you're being abused, you
Then you're
take
not
full
taking-
ownership for that. Oh, well, actually,
Then you're not owning. Yeah, you've allowed yourself to get into that point, so you're not taking.
Mm,
Yes, there's circumstances that are difficult to
Yeah,
not do that,
unique,
and people
yeah.
are subject to influence, and I get that. I think people should watch. There's a documentary called The Push
the push.
by Darren Brown. Yeah.
Mhm.
So the idea and the concept, just really quickly, I just want to squeeze
Yeah,
through
please.
that. The concept is, can we get somebody from 0 to 90 minutes to intentionally push somebody off a building to their death? And so the whole setting is strategically positioned. There's like 70 actors that the whole night is meticulously thought out. The guy comes in early, and he's asked to come into the kitchen with the chef. And the chef is like, can you put these little flags into the meat ones when they're supposed to be vegan? It's like, oh, yeah. And he complies. And then they reward that behavior for compliance. And then they start pushing those little compliancy tests over and over time. By the end of it, 3 of the 4 people intentionally murdered somebody. And they didn't actually kill them, but were pressured to be able to do it. So in your life, if you're not aware of other people's influences on you, you can be pressured into things like abusive relationships, which is the reason why I say this. And that's why it's also so powerful to learn things like the NLP and CBT and the public speaking, persuasion, influence, and because you start to recognize it. And then you're able to be the person to take responsibility for your life. So no, I don't think there's a point where it's too much.
Yeah, that's powerful. And I guess as well in that too, it's like no matter what we do or who we're with, what relationship we're in, the pace, the time for self-reflection, to keep kind of checking in on how is that thing impacting me, or how am I now showing up, or how is that shaping my, that's where the ownership comes, because there is an impact from what we surround ourselves with, who we surround ourselves with, where we are, but we don't often reflect enough when we get caught up in something, emotions or whatever it might be, love, we're not necessarily reflecting as much on who we're becoming in that and the impact that it's having on us. Yeah. So let's talk accents.
Great.
Yeah. So you've got an accent.
Yeah. You have an accent. I don't have an
I
accent.
have an accent. You have an accent.
No, you've got an accent.
We all have one. Where's yours from?
Australia, mate.
Which part? Come on, tell us the little town.
The little town. I grew up in a small, tiny country town called Glen Innes in New South Wales. I don't know why, but we have a replica of the Standing Stones, Stonehenge.
Oh, wow.
And we have a bagpiper in the town hall at 12 p.m. every day, midday.
What's the Scottish surname?
Well, that's the Scottish surname. I think it's just a happy coincidence. I don't know why, but small country town, 6,000 people in the entire area, including the farmers and everything. So small place. And I did have a very strong accent when I got to Dubai. And when I say strong, I would say, like, I'd introduce myself and say hello to 2 people, for example. Like, yeah, g'day, mate, how you going? And they'd look to each other for translation, like, did you just hear what he said? No, but did you? Right? So I had to learn to open my mouth when I speak and enunciate the words. So I'd start to say, hello, how are you? And in the beginning, that felt weird, inauthentic, right?
Yeah, unnatural.
But then over time, I started to enunciate a bit more.
Yeah.
So accent, when I speak to my brother or any of my brothers or my dad or something like that, it comes back.
Yeah, that always happens
happens.
Doesn't it? And so do you think there is a cultural bias in the speaking world for accents?
I think there is a little bit in some ways. I don't think that should be a reason for you to stop. And I don't think you shouldn't be who you are if you're starting to learn speaking. So if you have an accent, roll with it. But I've also softened my accent as well, because I know that it benefits the listener to do it. So if you find that your accent is preventing you from starting, don't. Just recognize, can they understand what I'm saying? Start with your intention. Is my message getting across? Because if your accent is strong, maybe it might be okay to soften a little bit. Maybe go straight into it and make it so intense that it becomes your thing. But either way, it shouldn't be the thing that stops you from starting.
And so what would be a tip if someone actually wants to work on their accent? How should they
Over-enunciate
sound?
every single word that you speak.
And that's moving your mouth in this.
Yeah. When I was in music, my music teacher said, Josh, I want you to over-enunciate every single word like this and do it like this when you sing. And I was just, that sounds so weird. You look so stupid, Mr. Russell. And I started doing it and I started singing better. And then I started doing it for stage speaking and people could understand me. And then eventually I just learned to enunciate a lot clearer regardless. So really just over-enunciate until it becomes a bit more normal. Yeah. And also just like when I started singing, I found artists that I really liked and I tried to mimic them. I'd mimic more of them until eventually the combination of all those people became my specific authentic style. So copy, steal like an artist, steal other people's, and then it'll become yours eventually.
Yeah, that's really powerful. And so on stage, what kind of stage have you spoken on? You've done TEDx?
Done TEDx a couple of times. I've done some sales events with hundreds of people. I do some hosting, emceeing stuff sometimes because it's fun, but they'll have thousands of people sometimes. I've done small ones as well where it's only a few people, which is the hardest, by the way.
Yeah.
Most intimidating because you've got 3 or 4 eyes or 6 eyes or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, a mixture from small to large.
And what's been your favourite stage?
My favourite's always the trainings because when it comes to stage speaking, let's say it's a 15-minute talk or a 30-minute talk, just watch YouTube. Just go watch YouTube. You'll get the same result. If you want change, go to a training, go to an immersion event, something that actually takes you through a process and you apply and you actually implement what you're learning. But a lot of these workshops, people will ask me to come in and train their companies in sales and stuff like that. And I'll go in there, I'm just like, 1 or 2 hours is not going to do anything for you.
Yeah.
I even tell them, like, you're wasting your money on this. Just by the way, there's no point in doing this. They've just got to meet their annual quota or something. But if you're going to be doing stage speaking, yeah, it might have a bit of motivation. And one piece might actually change somebody's path, which is the point and the intention. But if you want true change, you've got to put in time, effort. 15 to 30 minutes of another speaker isn't going to do anything.
Unless it's Jim Rohn. I love Jim Rohn.
Jim Rohn's great.
He's just an old school, like,
so great.
I know.
So great.
I loved him.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That was like my first personal development guru.
Oh, nice. Tony's mentor.
Yeah. But what have you ever seen someone do on stage, or have you done where you were like, oops?
I went to a really big event. I'm not going to name what it was, but a speaker hopped on stage. And this is how you know they're not a great speaker. What I was saying before is you want to connect with everybody in the room. Especially imagine you're setting up an event and there's 1,000 or 2,000 tickets that you've sold, that you've marketed to, you've spent time and resources to. And a speaker hops on stage and they say a question and 30% of the room walk out because it's not related to them. You'd be kind of annoyed, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I went to an event and this lady hops up and she's like, you know, if you're a parent, raise your hand. I'm not a parent, so this isn't for me. Okay, great. I'll come back in about 40 minutes. Great. And I saw about 30% of the room stand up and walk out.
Wow. That's
a really bad speaker. It's a really bad way to do it. So typically when you're doing bigger stages and bigger events, you want to make sure that your message lands with every single person. So a better question, I'm just thinking about it now, could be something like, raise your hand if you've ever been a child of a parent.
Yeah.
Right? Raise your hand if you know a parent.
Yeah.
Something like that, because then it connects you like, yes, this could be relevant to my friends, or now I can maybe understand my parents better, or something like that. Or
maybe if I'm ever going to be a parent, this could be really useful. Yes. Yeah, suddenly you've gone whoosh.
From disconnect to connection.
Yeah.
That's the point. So if you're, that was a really cringe moment for me.
Yeah.
And I felt really bad for the speaker because she probably got great information to share, but I was just like, it's not.
Did she recover it at all? Could
I don't know,
she?
I left.
Oh, wow, yeah.
That's how quickly you lose an audience.
Wow. And
I'm really hyper attentive. I really try to find the best as well in what people are saying. Even if they're not doing it well, I really try to find the best. But everything was just not directed to me.
Yeah.
So I left really quickly. 2 or 3 minutes I was out.
And that was right at the beginning as well, wasn't it? So
90-minute talk.
crash
Bye.
and burn. And I bet she knew all the skills.
She was doing the things. She just didn't do it right.
Gosh. And so in the corporate world, there's like loads of buzzwords, isn't there? What's one that you hate? You're just like,
we're solution-based problem solvers with key performance indicators to cross-sell the analytics of the other sides of the corporate. I'm like, what are you saying?
Oh, I know. And we're full of integrity.
Oh, what does that mean? Oh, my goodness, yeah. There's so many. Yeah, we're a technology company that focuses on implementing solutions to digital agencies. I'm like, what do you do?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Yeah.
And nobody knows what that means. They just use those words to try to sound bigger than they are. But the problem is that you're not connecting with the people that you're speaking to.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm fairly well versed in a few things. I've worked with quite a few people, and I still have no idea what they're talking about.
Yeah.
So this is one of the things, even in one of my trainings last week, one of the ladies, this is the reason why she came to the class, is to simplify her language. And she did the same thing to me. So I was like, okay, so what's the offer that we're working on? She started saying something like that. And I'm like, great, we're going to use this, but what does this mean? Just curiously. She's like, oh, I kind of just like help businesses to grow. I'm like, let's use that.
Yeah, fantastic.
Let's go with that. That makes a lot more sense to me.
Yeah.
So even if you're in the corporate world, you're going to get further if you simplify your language. Oh my God. I have one guy, he works in Saudi. He's had 8 promotions now in the last 3 years from the communication classes we've done.
Wow.
His income grew 80%.
Fantastic.
Okay. And this is because he stopped using the corporate jargon.
Yeah.
It's because he started using human language that people use,
Mm-hmm.
right? When people use those corporate jargon things, do you think in those words?
No.
Ever.
No.
Ever.
No. And especially because I've never been in corporate.
Yeah, as well.
So even more disconnected. I'm just like, huh?
But the only time people use it is in emails.
Yeah, or LinkedIn.
Or LinkedIn, right?
LinkedIn.
No one uses it in their brain. You know,
No.
one of the things that I screwed up when I started was I would start my speeches with something like, you know, raise your hand if you want to be a better, effective communicator. And people are like, I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
So instead, start it with, you know, raise your hand if you want people to actually listen to you.
Yeah.
And feel like you can connect to people and feel like your voice isn't being overthrown or overheard, or, you know, what would it look like for you if you actually felt seen
Mm-hmm.
and your communication, your message was landing?
Mm-hmm.
Those are things that people are saying in their minds. Like, I want people to listen to me.
Yeah. Like, how do you
Use
tell a
those
funny
things.
story?
Yeah. Raise your hand if you want to be able to tell a great story that people really
Yeah.
connect to. Wouldn't that be great, right?
Yeah.
Rather than being effective communicator. What does that mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Simplify, and use the words that are in other people's heads.
And why do you think people do that, all these buzzwords, just to sound smart?
I think it's just the evolution of the industry over the years.
Yeah.
I think it worked really well a long time ago because it made corporations seem bigger than they were.
Okay.
And it's a bit of a smoke screen.
Yeah.
So that people are like, oh, wow, it's a team. It's like the law of team or the power of teams. You know, when you say, yeah, we will help you with that rather than
Yes.
I can, you seem bigger.
Psychology.
And when you
yeah.
use corporate jargon, it sounds like too complicated that people that don't understand will probably still buy into it.
Mm-hmm.
But nowadays, people are starting to see through that sort of stuff, and people really want a connection and to really understand what people are talking about. So go simple. Doesn't matter what industry you're in
Yeah.
or who you're speaking to.
And do you think people are more like open to that? Like, have you worked with any big corporations? Is there barriers? Do they feel like there's still this hierarchical thing where they need to be a bit more buzzwordy and removed? Or have you seen that there's actually a shift in them understanding connectivity is important?
Yeah. You start with it and they might not understand the first conversation, but then they'll trial it and they'll see the benefit of it very, very quickly and be like, okay, I got you. Makes sense. So some people, let's say it's a developer or something, and we'll talk about a specific project. They want to talk on the company level, not the project level. So that kind of changes the topic of the way that they speak it. So you'll change little bits to reflect the size and scope that you're talking about, but still the way that you speak about it still needs to be really, really simple.
Mm.
So even if it's going to be you're speaking to a full company under you, no, buzzwords, corporate jargon needs to be thrown out. It just needs to be. It doesn't actually help.
Mm. And is there any other things that you'd say that are just bullshit about the speaking industry that you'd love to see change?
Yeah, for sure. I think that podcast microphones should be a lot more expensive.
Are you selling them?
Was that?
Are you selling them?
I'm about to. take them all. I'm going to buy every mic in the world and then just make them more expensive so that not everybody has an opinion. I just think that people should learn how to talk before they do. You wouldn't get people on stage that are terrible singers and go and pay for them to sing or listen to them sing, but suddenly when people, this is the beauty and the dark side of speaking, is that if you're on stage, you're automatically an expert. So if I put you on stage and you have no idea what you're talking about, but you can say it with confidence, then automatically I believe you. So that's a bit of a dark side of it. But I think that you just need to learn how to speak really, really clearly, hop on stage, tell your truth, but do it the right way. Yeah.
And what about people in the speaking industry who have a platform but have never actually paid their dues in that area? So like, let's create a fictitious scenario. You've got someone teaching about fitness, but they've been on a fitness journey for like 6 months or a year, but they're great at communicating. Because this happens, right?
There's probably two sides to this, where it's people, when they start to learn it, they become way overconfident. So they pretend to be more than they are until they realize how much they don't know, and then they start to ease off a little bit. I think it's the Dunning-Kruger or something like that effect, where you have way too much confidence when you learn a little bit, then you learn a lot more, and then you realize how underqualified you are, and then you slowly try to build yourself back up. But then there's also the chapter ahead principle, where, have you seen, what's it called? Catch Me If You Can?
Yes.
Yeah. So Leo goes into the classroom and he's literally one chapter ahead of the book, of the entire classroom. And he's still technically the professional and still guiding people towards the right outcome. So if you're doing it in the right way, without making big claims that you're not, if you've never done, I think it's okay, as long as you know more than the other person.
Yeah.
I don't think you need to be the best in the world to have an opinion. I just think you need to be with integrity, but more intention of making sure that person's life is going to benefit, and that you've researched the sides of the equation. You know, if you're in fitness, for example, and maybe an exercise like deadlifts is really bad for me, but you're one chapter ahead and you tell me to do deadlifts, but it's really bad for me specifically, I'm not getting a good benefit. Even though my intention was to help you and I'm one chapter ahead, I still can do harm because I don't know all the sides of the equation. And that's where experience comes in. So do one chapter ahead, but be continuously researching from different sides.
Yeah, that's really powerful. And I guess there's an ownership in that. Like when you are real with your journey, like this is where I am, this is where I'm at. I think, again, that I find that connecting. I'm like, okay, cool, I can kind of relate to this person. When someone's too many chapters ahead of me in anything, it actually loses me anyway, because I'm like, are we peer to peer? I like peer to peer. I like that feeling of, okay, cool, there's this, they're an expert, but actually not so removed. I really like that form of like mentorship or guidance or listening personally. And I find that connecting. I think a lot of people do.
100%. Yeah. You can only connect to what you can understand.
Yes.
So when you're hopping on stage and you're using big terminology, you don't understand it, so you disconnect. If it's somebody who's in a part of the journey that feels just far too far away from you, it's very difficult to connect to, so you might see it as inspirational, but not real for you.
And then do you think some people look for that difference? I know you mentioned Andrew Tate before, and that's someone who, love him or hate him, whatever, he's marketed himself well, and he is somewhat on this pedestal of achievement, or if you call that success in life. And if you looked at maybe the people that followed him or admired him or were part of his community or whatever it might be, I don't think they would ever class that they're on his level at all. But they are drawn to this form of leadership or demonstration. So there is many different ways. He's an incredible
communicator, though. Love him or hate him, he's very good at communication.
And what would you say is great about his way he communicates?
It's relatable. And it feeds into people's insecurities and biases. But he's very simple with his language. He dulls it down to maybe a 4th grade level. And that's where we should be really doing it. If you want to connect with masses, you want to dull your communication style down a lot and speak about experiences. Every single point that you make should be related to an experience that everybody experiences. And he's very good at that. So if you want to be a great speaker, you're going to have to communicate really simply. And let me try to show you in just a quick little demonstration so you can understand really quickly. If I wanted to be speaking about communication, okay, and I know the answer, I know how you're going to do it, I know the solutions, I know everything, okay? So if I were to say this, okay, if you want to be a great speaker, you're going to need to firstly use your tonality in a better way that actually captivates and melodically uses your pitch as well as your rate of speech, and to be able to slow down when it's necessary to be able to hook the person in, and then be able to use different language patterns, hook, story, outcome, offer, all that sort of stuff. Okay. You've already lost. You're gone, right? You have no idea what I'm talking about.
I mean, outcomes, offers, this pitch.
I know what I'm talking about. It makes sense to me, but it doesn't make sense to you. So there's no point in me speaking. But if I were to say instead, okay, if you want to be a great speaker, you need to simplify your information. One of the biggest problems a lot of people have is they try to sound too smart. So let me ask you this question. Have you ever been in, let's say, a lecture, or maybe you've seen somebody speak online or on stage or something like that, or even in person, and they just use big words all the time? Have you seen that? Yeah. Do you feel connected to them?
No, I'm really disconnected. Yeah.
Oh, really? Exactly. So if you want to be a great speaker, you need to learn how to simplify the information. See how simple that was?
Yeah.
I just did a framework to be able to connect to you the whole way through. And everybody on the podcast will relate to that because I used a lot of potentials. Have you ever seen a speaker that's on YouTube? Have you ever seen a speaker that is in real life? Have you ever seen a lecturer or study or just a friend that uses big words? Everybody has seen that. So instead of just trying to sound smart, I intentionally attempted to connect.
Relate, yeah.
So making stuff really simple and relatable is the best way to hold people's attention and make sure they take your point.
Powerful. So if guests and listeners want to connect with you, want to delve into one of your courses, how often do you do them? Where can they find all of your stuff? What have you got coming up?
I've got another one coming up pretty soon, well, depending on when you're listening to this, obviously.
It will be soon. It will be soon.
It will be soon. End of May.
Nice.
And that'll be a 3-day event. I'm starting to run them every 6 to 8 weeks at this point. So
amazing.
They're really, really transformational. You don't have to come, but it'll help you.
Are they in Dubai?
They are in Dubai. Yeah.
Where
I'm looking to start
them?
doing them online as well. Maybe some other variations and other singular topics, things like story selling or storytelling, things like communication for relationships or leadership or something like that as well. I will be starting to implement those very, very soon. But for now, the main ones that I do are the 3-day events.
Amazing.
Yeah. So just reach out on my Instagram. It's probably the easiest way. I still check everything.
Joshua McCartney.
Josh McCartney.
Josh McCartney.
Official.
There you go.
Yeah.
Love it.
The Josh McCartney was taken, so I had to get official.
Oh, well, I mean, that's just so much better, isn't it? Blue ticks and everything.
Blue ticks and everything.
Thank you so much for joining me today, Joshua. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Sarah.